Hey, this is Courtney Picou, and we are back with Reconnection Blueprints, how to um, hear God's voice by letting go of limitations and basically just embracing empowered living for you, for your family, cities, and nations. And today I have Dr. Jennifer Gramith, and she is a lymphatic specialist. She's done over 20 years in the medical field, and I'm super excited to have her today. I'm going to let her fill in some gaps that I have. But look, part of the reason why I picked her is just what she contributes to understanding emotions, our body systems, and how that can even affect what's going on with us spiritually in our mindsets and of course in our physical bodies, because we have to keep in mind that there's three planes that we have to look at. It's not just physical, it's not just spiritual, and it's not just emotional. It's all of them interacting at the same time. So, Dr. Jennifer, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience as you would.
All right, no, I'll be happy to. And thank you, Courtney, for inviting me on this show. Just to tell you a little bit about my background, I worked in mainstream medicine as a nurse. I worked in oncology, cardiology, and internal medicine. And when this journey began for me, I worked in oncology. My father was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. He had tumors the size of grapefruit in his abdomen, under his arms. He was a crop duster and had the chemicals spilled directly on him while working on a plane. And then as a child, he would spray himself down with DEET before going out and working in the garden. So you can imagine his exposure. But because I was medically minded, when we got the diagnosis, we did chemotherapy, radiation, just like I treated all of my patients. They did just a couple of sessions. It destroyed his heart. They gave him less than 2 months to live. My father was in his early 50s. I was devastated. My father was a deacon of the church. I called and had all the churches praying for him. And it was a very dark time because you become a medical practitioner because you want to help people save lives. Okay. And I felt like, being in oncology, I kept seeing patients get sicker and sicker and sicker with the method of treatment that we used. And if they survived it, we kind of just left them hanging. We didn't tell them how to rebuild their immune system. It was just like, good luck, And so that was very discouraging for me. I even sent my father to Dallas, Texas, because I thought there was better cancer facilities out there. They went, told him the same thing. They told him just go home, prepare for your death, and that was that. Thank the Lord, my medical director was big into holistic medicine himself, and he brought me into his office and he said, Jennifer, what do you have to lose? Because I thought it was completely quackery. I was totally mainstream minded. He said, it makes sense. You want to try to build up his immune system. He's got a cancer of the immune system, of the lymphatic system. And so I took him to an herbalist up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Jim Hankstepper. He's still there today, has a little herb shop. He had a brain tumor and cured himself and never had a reoccurrence. And I go in with my father, just unsure, like so many patients are when they come in to see me. They've been given a prognosis that's not good, and you're just kind of scared. And so I went in there, he gave me hope. He gave my father hope. We started taking a supplement program, doing therapies I knew nothing about. And within 6 months, he had shrunk the tumors half their size. A year later, he was cancer free. It changed my life. It changed my direction in my career. I went back to school to become a naturopathic doctor. And upon doing that, I started working with cancer patients in a different way and started to see how they got stronger and stronger with nutritional changes in their lifestyle, supplements, and then certain therapies. And that's how I got involved in holistic medicine. And I still today work with, my specialty is oncology. It's the lymphatic system and the immune system. I help patients to rebuild it, whether they are on the back end of chemotherapy or they've chosen to not do chemotherapy. I help them to help their bodies heal itself by stimulation of the immune system through the lymphatic system. And then I also went back to school to become a psychologist because there's a huge emotional component to every disease process. And that's typically the root of the problem. And so that's where I am today.
Great. Is there like a direct correlation of emotion to the lymphatic system that you've discovered?
Yeah. Typically it's, feeling like you're stuck in a situation. It depends on the area of the body. My father, his regional lymph nodes, like the axillary, the inguinal, and the abdominal, all of his deeper lymphatics, that had to do with just a long history of issues with family and abuse and feeling like you're stuck and you have to be the good child and you can't say anything and you have to cover up. And, so that I think was the emotional root to my father's getting the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow. So, oh boy, there's so many avenues of questions that I would love to ask. So, like, what's some tools or strategies that you use? Like, I know that whenever you're dealing with that kind of stuff, not only do you have to deal with the traumatic emotions that come up, and a lot of it's correlated with, like you said, the location in which, but what are some things that you implement? I know that there's certain therapies and such, but like to get the lymphatic system like rolling and dealing with the emotions, like I know it's like everything has to be dealt with at the same time, but yet like not so isolated, yet isolated somewhat.
Right. Yeah. And every person's different. And that's what we have to remember. And so I use in my practice, there's different modalities, different ways that we try to extract information from the client. Because typically, if you let them talk long enough, they'll tell you the whole story if you can listen. And so I use biofeedback testing to kind of get an overview of their system, whether they have genetic weaknesses, acute exposures to environmental toxins. The emotional portion is on there as well. And that is where we start. When you come into my clinic, I will test you, do a biosurvey, followed up with a heart rate variability and a BIA. And that kind of tells me how the lymph system is working through the body using a BIA, which has a phase angle, which tells you intracellular, extracellular fluid. And so that's very important because what people don't realize is that their lymphatic system doesn't have an automatic pump like the circulatory system. And, us living more sedentary lifestyles is part of the problem. They're not moving. So getting their lymphs moving is the foundational therapy that we have in our practice. But you've got to think about, well, why is their lymphs not moving? I worked with an immunologist, Dr. Emmett Miller, out of California, and he gave us a great story about how we as practitioners, we've got to really start listening to the client. Because if you have a client come into your office and they say, Doc, I'm coughing up blood. Well, you could shove a cotton ball in his mouth and that would take care of the acute problem, but you don't want to do that. You want to know why is he coughing up blood? Well, you talk to him a little bit longer. He says, well, I take, 10 aspirins a day. Oh, well, that's the problem. Stop taking the aspirins and you'll stop coughing up blood. But why is he taking 10 aspirins a day? Well, it's because he's drinking a fifth of gin. Well, stop drinking the fifth of gin. You won't need the aspirins. You'll stop coughing up blood. Well, why are you drinking a fifth of gin? Because my wife and my children left me. There lies the root of the problem. So at any point, if you stop along that path and you don't address the whole person, you're missing the big picture, and they're going to have a reoccurrence. And so, you know, I've been doing this over 20 years, and it always falls back to an emotional trauma, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. So a lot of these things can be passed down from generation to generation. And so that's why you'll see the same disease processes occur in families. And so, you know, that's what we do here. We look at each person individually. We don't have just a generic, you know, run them through these types of tests or these types of therapies. We test each individual to see specifically what they need. And we start with that, because if, you know, if their problem is 90% emotional, if you're not addressing that and you're just going to the physical symptom, you're not going to get anywhere. And so I think that's why I've been more successful than most practitioners with helping patients rebuild their immune system and overcome cancer. And so, yeah, because we have that approach. If that hopefully that answers your question.
Totally, above and beyond. Like, I actually like really appreciate you sharing that, because just as you're talking, I'm like thinking, you know, it's so important for us to stay curious, to keep digging, because at the end of the day, it really is like, okay, so why are you drinking alcohol right now? Like, what are you trying to numb? Oh, the pain of the rejection that my family just left or has left. How long has it been going on? And I mean, you actually kind of led me into my next question of, you know, like, what's a practical tool or strategy that has led to your success as like being healthy for yourself? Because I mean, part of it is to be preventative. It's like, okay, how can I stay curious with myself so that I don't end up having to come see you, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's, you know, that's a lot of, you know, encourage clients to do a lot of meditation, a lot of self-reflection. And when you have symptoms appear, you know, you ask yourself, where's that coming from? Is there an emotion that I'm not dealing with? Like if you know, wake up one morning and your vision has changed. You know, we all attribute that to just age and just getting older. Well, no, we're getting more to where we want to have blinders on. We don't really want to see what's going on in the world. So it may be something that you just don't want to see. So your brain tells your body, hey, I don't want to see it. So let's make it not see it. And so you really have to, you know, pay attention to the signs that the body is giving you, and you follow that trail back to that emotion. And I kid you not, 99% of the time it is dead on.
You actually used a perfect example. I had gone to some intense leadership training, and I wear contacts, so I don't see very far. I can see up close very well. Yeah. And I attributed it to all my years in college and reading thousands and thousands of books. And the trainer asked me a question. Actually, she didn't even ask me. She asked somebody else. Luckily, she didn't ask me directly. And I was like, okay, what are you not wanting to see far away? Like, in my entire life, like, it was always blurry. I would never had clarity about my true self. I didn't have clarity of the future because I'm such a visionary. I'm like, oh, okay, that's my brain. Like, oh, okay, like catching it. I'm like, okay, great. My vision gets to get better now, seeing distance. And one day I'm not gonna have these contacts.
That's right.
But yeah, like just you talking about, I was like, oh yeah, the vision, like, because especially in this day and this time of uncertain times, like it's important to have leaders who can see and not be afraid and be so crystal clear of what's going on in the future. And so one of the things, since you focus so much on the lymphatic system, like I know that there was a time I actually used to work in corporate office, and I was okay whenever I was out and about over the warehouse and over the counter people, because I worked in several areas. But then whenever they moved me into the office and I was kind of over like a phone room, you know, a bunch of phone people taking phone calls, I got stuck at a desk running reports. And one of the things that kept coming back from my biomedical feedback was that my lymphatic system was sluggish. And so I'm wondering how, and you might not be able to answer it, but I think that you will be. Like, how much is whenever your lymphatic system gets sluggish, how much does that really affect your mind and your clarity of your thoughts?
A lot, it actually does, because then you have the state of inflammation. And so it depends on each individual, okay, where that congestion will create inflammation. I see a lot of brain inflammation. And so what happens is when you're sit behind a desk and you're working on computers and you're getting those EMFs, you are causing congealed lymphatic system. Your lymphatic fluid should look like water, okay? Because your lymphatic vessels are tiny. They're like this couple of strands of hair in the very smallest, and the largest lymphatic vessel is the size of a piece of yarn. It's called a thoracic duct. So imagine trying to stick like cottage cheese through those vessels when the lymph becomes thick. You can't do it. So what happens to your immune system, you blind your immune system. It can't, this little T cells, B cells, macrophages is trying to go through fluid to circulate through the body to any known pathogen. That's why when your lymphatic system is congested, your immune function and route time is cut down drastically. And so then you have an exposure to a pathogen and your body can't fight it off. It kind of takes over because of the lack of circulation of the T cells, B cells, and macrophages. And then, many times the soldiers or the T cells will go right by the pathogen and not even recognize it because it's so thick, it's so congested. And so it definitely can mess with the way that you think. You can become very depressed. You can become very fatigued. You can have a lot of stomach issues, headaches, skin rashes. These are all signs of a compromised immune system because your lymphatic system is congested. And so things that we kind of write off as, oh, well, that's just, getting old, or, whatever we tell ourselves, whatever lies we tell ourselves. Right. Your body is miraculous and it will tell you when something's not right. But if you ignore it and you just, it's just like the whole analogy of if your car light comes on and you just stick a piece of black tape over it so you don't see it, doesn't mean the problem is gone. You get headaches and just take aspirin every day or ibuprofen and think that you've corrected the problem. You've not corrected, you've actually just masked the problem, and it is creating more and more issues. And then we're surprised when all of a sudden we have a chronic disease process. And right now everybody is in a panic about the corona, but look how many lives are taken every year with cancer, heart disease, diabetes. I mean, that's the true pandemic. And we don't even pay attention to it until it hits and strikes us or one of our family members. And so we really do need to focus on the immune system and how to build it up, because the scare right now is, oh my gosh, if you have a compromised immune system. Well, I know doing this work that the majority of Americans have a compromised immune system. Right. They don't have one chronic disease, they may have 3 to 5 chronic diseases going on. So there's a risk there. But that fear that we're all feeling, that is unhealthy for your lymphatic system. That fear creates instant inflammation and causes instant congestion in the lymphatic system. So do not allow yourself to be so, focused in on the fear and watching Fox News and all that all day long to where it's really suppressing your immune system, because you're putting yourself at risk. Turn on some happy music, dance around, look at the bright side of this time and spend time with your family and, develop new relationships, pour into God's word. It's a time of rest. It's definitely a time of rest. Yeah.
You just hit the nail on the head of, like our number one thing, like, because God's called us to create. He's the ultimate creator. And he's called us to create. And our number one thing that keeps us in someday land is, oh, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like, we've got time. Like, this is the season to rest and prepare ourselves for what's next, because there is no going back to normal. I believe that this was the moment, but there's no going back to normal. Like that was mediocrity, that was us sleeping, and this is the awakening, not only of the Holy Church, but just of what we are created to do on this earth. And I mean, like, we don't have cable. I mean, I'll watch, like, I can get the news to see exactly what my governor is saying because I'm going to honor what the authority is telling me.
Right.
You know, I think that it's so important for us to acknowledge the anxiety and the fear, like, not just like, oh, no, take after the thought. Like, let's not even think about it. Like,
Right.
like I said, that's like taking the black duct tape and putting it on. No. Okay, Laura, I'm feeling a little anxious because now I'm kind of unemployed due to the work that I do and everything. And I was like, but I know that you got this, so I'm not afraid of like the disease itself. I'm like, I know that that's not my emotional conflict. This is, so I'm giving it to you. I just, yeah, like, I think you hit it, like, to not stay in fear because that affects the system. You know, like, just resting, but not sitting. You know, like,
Right.
the difference between resting and being still, but that doesn't mean sit on the couch and watch TV all day. What is like one of the best things to do, especially with what's going on right now? I mean, we're having like school at home. Everyone has suddenly become a homeschool mom or dad. or everybody's pretty much become sedentary because everybody's doing work through Zoom or, you know, like webinars and such for, you know, if you're not in the medical field. So what are some things that you think you could share with the audience to keep the lymphatic system out of getting sluggish, besides just, you know, doing the mental work of, okay, what's my mind thinking right now? How can I take captive this thought? But what's some physical aspects that you would recommend?
Exercise is one of the biggest things. And so you don't sit in the house and do nothing. You know, if you're homeschooling, and we've homeschooled for years, so it's like nothing's changed much. But exercise with your kids. Get up and get moving. Like I said, start dancing, doing fun things. I was on a webinar last night, and some of the couples were talking about how they will do their work in the morning, and then the rest of the afternoon, they play games and sports and stuff with their children. Exercise, because the lymphatic system doesn't have an automatic pump, exercise is one thing that will get it stimulated. So if you can't go out, you can get a little rebounding trampoline and you can bounce on that. 10 minutes twice a day is excellent for the lymphatic system. Epsom salts and peroxide baths with a little ginger is excellent for your lymphatic system to keep things detoxing and moving. And so 70% of your lymphatic system is directly underneath the skin. Okay. And that's what's really, dry brushing is very helpful for that. The 30% that is in the gut contains 80% of your immune system. And so to get that really deep, you've got to do the movement and, you know, or the therapy like we offer the XP2, but you can exercise, you can eat, work on your diet, because everybody always tells me that's one of the biggest excuses. I don't have time to, you know, eat healthy. Well, now you got nothing but time. And you can
we all know everybody prepared for like a month.
Exactly. We're all stocked up. Well, you know, think about and get your kids involved in this. Don't just prepare food as moms and dads and give it to the kids, because for them to really appreciate good, healthy food, they need to have their hands in it. They need to be learning how to prepare. Even small children. My 10-year-old at home, he can cook and make bread and do everything. It's remarkable. And so, you know, let this be a time of creativity in your home where your kids get involved, and, you know, you're teaching them about health and wellness and how to take care of their bodies so that there's no fear. They know that they have a strong immune system. There's no fear that they're going to get this, you know, corona or any other type of virus and it's going to take them out, because they take very good care of the body. And as you know, people with a strong immune system, they don't have fear. They may contract it, but it's very mild symptoms. And, you know, that's the key. So don't live in fear. You have total control over how this impacts you by taking care of your own body. And that's in scripture, throughout scripture, you know, to care for the temple of the body that God has given us. And this is how you do it. You exercise, you eat right, you think right. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Exercise, eat right, think right. Oh, girl, that's a tag. You should
I know.
a coffee mug for that.
Exactly.
Oh, Dr. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know that it's really crazy, especially in your line of work, especially right now. I just really appreciate you sharing your wisdom that you have. It's wow, what a time.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you so much for inviting me on this show. And if I can do anything for you, and you definitely, you and your family will be in my prayers. But if you ever need anything, I'll be happy to help you any way I can.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for joining us. And, you know, until our next interview, thank y'all for joining us. Exercise, eat well, get your mind right.
That's right.
Stay healthy, people, and get movement. Movement, of course, that's part of the exercise. Until next time, y'all have a blessed day.